Hey guys, it's Maymay and it's time for another scripture art journal week. And this week we're going to try something a little bit different. This is totally off the cuff and I really think that God is speaking to somebody about this one because it's been on me a little bit. So we're going to try this week. This week, instead of me giving you a specific scripture, I want to give you a topic. And the topic this week is God's time. And this came to me because there's things happening in our world and things happening in my life and things happening around me. And I keep seeing how things are happening in God's time. Not my time frame or time plan, but in His time. And that's what causes us to have to be patient and wait, right? You guys all understand how that is. And so I thought, how interesting would it be if instead of us doing a specific scripture, because although there's lots of scriptures that talk about how God will do things in His time, there's no specific scripture that says, God's time is blah, blah, blah. There are scriptures that really discuss it. And I thought, what a fun way to get into the Word if I give you a topic and you can go and do your research. And then maybe every day you write something different that you have discovered throughout your research or something that you noticed that day. Or maybe even you reflect on a time when God did something in His time and you had to wait and be patient. What a great way to just talk about the topic every day. Just look up the topic of God's timing. I think this is going to be cool. Now, it's interesting. I don't plan my pages before I get the scripture. I try very hard to make sure I'm not picking something I want to do and turning it into scripture. So I do not look for the art until it's time to do the page. And this is what's so interesting. I have this stamp set, which we have in our store. We've had it for a long, long time, and I have never used it. And it was funny when I started looking through my scripture sets, I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to use this one. And so I'm going to use this stamp set called God's Time. And I also, when I was looking at different stamping techniques, I saw what someone had done with a stamping technique I really want to try. So we're going to do all that together right now. So that again is God's time, showing me different things all at one time. Here's the deal. What I saw done, and I thought was really pretty, is the person took kind of a not white page and not beige, but kind of in the middle. And you can see how it might have some color in it. I don't use these kind of pages very much, and I thought this would be a neat way to use it. And what they had done is in the background of the page, they had stamped the image in a very pale ink. And I think I'm going to go with like gray flannel, kind of a pale gray. But in the foreground, they stamped one of the images in a dark, like a black color. So here's what I thought we would try. Let me get some scrap paper, my scrap notebook. I really don't want to make a mess on my table. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this stopwatch, and it's going to be my background image. And then I'm going to take that, what is this, hourglass, and it's going to be my foreground image. Now, this stamp set is from my friends at Joy Claire. I think they do beautiful stamp sets, and I love this one so much. And I can't believe I've never played with it before now. But I think this is going to be a cool way to use it, a cool technique. So I hope this is as pale as I want. If you don't have a really super pale ink, you might think about using like a distress ink, maybe in like a pale blue or something like that. See, that's not as pale as I want. I want to keep going. I want to find a really pale ink. Let me dig through my ink collection. So let me show you what I did. I ended up going into my distress inks and pulling out old paper. And this one is old paper, and you can barely see it on the screen. This is that gray one that I started with. This is two of the Memento colors that just didn't work. I even got fancy and thought, okay, what if I use like a pale pink? How will it look? But I ended up using this one. I left this here so you can see it. I'm going to flip this page over, and now we're going to start over. And I'm going to use old paper, distress ink, and I'm going to ink this stamp all around the page, and I'm making some background paper with a very pale image. That's the idea. And you may have to play around with your inks to see what you can find, but once you find the one that works, you can just get going. And I'm just going to stamp this all over the page. Now I think what I'm going to do is do some second generation stamping. That's when you ink your stamp up with one ink, you stamp it off onto another piece of paper, and then you come back to yours and you get a really pale image in the back. I think that's beautiful. And if it's a good option if you don't have a pale enough ink, you can always do a second generation with an ink that's too dark. So that's that one. I'm going to do some more of those on the page, kind of here and there, because I just really want the page to feel full in the background, but not too dark. There, those images are very dark, very pale in the background. Because of the size of this image, I turned it a little sideways on my block just so I can get it all on there. And I'm going to use some VersaFine. VersaFine is my favorite ink for dark black images. I'm going to use it to get a nice dark image in the front of what we've stamped. I just thought this was a really cool technique that I saw. Just stamp that straight down. And look how pretty that looks, how it just really comes to the forefront. Isn't that cool? I love that. I like mixing stamps like that. I think that looks really, really nice. I've also decided to take a little bit of Hickory Smoke Distress ink onto a block, and I'm going to watercolor with it. Because I feel like this image is just kind of floating here all on its own, I'm going to take a water brush. Let me get a little water flowing. If you're not familiar with that, that's just a water brush. That's just a brush that's got water in the barrel of it. And this is actually, I think, like a Crayola one from Walmart. Nothing fancy. Just want to get some water flowing and get myself kind of a watercolor, dark color for shading, for shadow here. I think this will be cool. I didn't want it to be solid, you know, dark, but I wanted there to be a base that I felt like this hourglass was sitting on. And that's a good first base, but first base, like we're playing baseball. That's a good first color, but I'm going to come back again with even more color. Clean that block off, add some more. And I'm going to saturate it even more right at the top edge, like a darker shadow there. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to use a little less water this time and get more color concentrated. I'm going to come right here, and I want that to be a little darker here. I'm mimicking the shadow in the stamp itself. You can see how that's where the darkest is, and that's what I'm doing, extending that darkness out. This paper is not watercolor paper because this was an afterthought, but that's okay. It's going to soak up this water. It's going to warp a little bit, but when I glue it into my journal, it'll be just fine. And I just like how that has given it something to sit on. Isn't that pretty? It's pale and it's simple, but I like it. All right, so we're done with our acrylic block. Clean that off. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the stamp set plastic and I'm just kind of laying this to see where I want the words to go. I like to do that sometimes because you can see through it. And here's what I've come up with. I'm going to take the God's timing, has perfect timing. I'm going to stamp that with my VersaFine, kind of close to the hourglass, like so. Then I'm going to take the word God. Matter of fact, I'll stick this one over here so I'll remember to clean it. And I'm going to stamp it right above there. I like the little squiggly lines in that. That's so cute. And then I'm calling that done because I think it's simple, but it pops. And now I could take these arms and put them everywhere, but I don't want to overplay the theme. That's one thing. You got to know when you want to stop. Now, you might want to keep going, but I think that's where I want to stop. And I'm going to glue it into my book. So there we go. That's week's page for me. And I love how this turned out. It's simple. And see how that kind of laid down after I let it dry for a second? And I really like how that turned out. Hey, I hope you enjoyed kind of doing a topical study, something a little bit different. And if this is your first time joining us, head over to our Facebook group that's called Hide His Word in My Heart and get involved. That'll get you some inspiration. There's some prayer partners and some prayer requests over there that you can get involved in. And on Thursday night, we do a Bible study there. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. Talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.